In today's video, we're gonna have a look at a practical rook ending. And after studying this in detail, we will be familiar with 2 to 3 very important motives to convert your rook endgame advantage. So start with the basics. First, black has this very strong pawn on the second rank and is about to queen it after a check with rook to f1, check, king goes somewhere, and a1 queen. So white needs to defend against that, and that's a beginner exercise. How can white defend against this immediate threat? And the answer is go with the king to the second rank, but you should know which square is the right one, because just one of them is holding the game for a bit longer. All the others are losing instantly, and those who are losing instantly are king to e2, because rook h1, it will skewer the king and the rook, because white is forced to take the pawn, because otherwise it will be a queen, and after rook a2, rook is lost. And the same goes for king to f2, but the only move here to try is king to g2, as now the board is too small and the skewer of course wouldn't work. After rook h1, the rook is too close to the king and white would just take and win, and the queen would come in unprotected. So that's of course what happened in the game, but black had another plan here to break the white defense, and this is connected with the activation of all your pieces, and the piece which is not active yet is the black king. Needs to get him into the game. The rook is really stuck as there is no skewer and no real check, because this one doesn't work. The rook is just too passive. So in general it's a bit bad for this rook that it's so caged in, but on the other hand the white rook is also tied down to the defense of the a file, because whenever the rook moves away, black could just move his rook away and queen. So this rook on a6 is also not able to do anything. It can never pick up the f7 pawn, because then black would get a new queen. So that's a huge advantage of having the pawn on the second rank, that the white rook is unflexible, but the downside is that our rook is also quite unflexible. Another downside of this is that once our king is running all the way to our pawn, it has nowhere to hide, because there is no space between the pawn and the rook left. So our king basically has nowhere to hide, and we need to find some ideas how to get the king into the game without it being like checked forever. And that's exactly what we're gonna check. So let's start step by step. The first moves, of course, are bring the king into the game. Black tries to cut us off, but we can just walk on the 8th rank. As we already said, he can never take f7, because if takes f7, we either have rook h1 check, king takes, and we get a queen, or we just have rook b1 followed by a1 queen. So that's not possible. So white is supposed to wait, and we bring the king over and break this cutting off by the rook. Rook needs to stay on the a file, so he cannot keep us cut on the 7th rank, as again the a pawn would queen. So rook goes down on the a file, we go up. We go up, and after rook a8, we go up. Now at some point the rook will start checking us, and we will see that shortly. So in general, the moment when the rook needs to start checking us is when the king is protecting the pawn, as then our rook would be free to move. That's not yet the case, so black can still wait with, for example, after king c4, rook to a6. After that we go king d3, and now we set up kind of a double threat. The double threat is now that on the one hand we sometimes have the idea to move the rook anyway, give up the pawn, but then force him to go into a pawn ending after trading the rooks. Make sure that you win the pawn ending, that you calculate it out beforehand, and that's a great winning idea, because there is basically nothing he can do against it. Also note that it's important not to go to e1 and try to trade on e2, which might look even more promising, because then we have a problem, which we will see. For example, after rook to a8, if we would go rook to e1, he would have this nasty intermediate check After that, our king needs to move, and if it goes to the fourth rank, there will be no transition into a pawn ending, and the rook ending is of course a draw. So what's the difference actually if we go with the rook to c1? After that, if he gives the intermediate check, we can also interpose, keeping the king here on d3. And after rook a2, we still trade the rooks. And since we have the distant opposition is an opposition which is not a classical one with one square in between, but with 3 or 5. So an odd number of squares in between. Why is that? Why does it need to be an odd number? Because if we have the opposition with 3 squares in between and it's him to move and he comes closer, then we get the normal opposition with 1 square in between, and this of course only works with odd numbers, as we always take away 2 squares and then we again have an odd number like 1 square in between. So here we are able to get closer, like this for example. If he goes to f3 now, we go all the way around as we usually handle it with the opposition. Can try to go back, but again we win the opposition. He can try to hide on h3, but then again we go around, and finally we will cage him in. He's forced to make a move which he doesn't want to make. Thus f4 gets weak and we return and we'll pick up the pawn finally. So this ending would be lost, so white needs to defend against this threat of trading rooks, and instead he should not play rook to a8, but he should try to start checking us. So for example, he could try rook to d6, but then there comes the other idea, which is king to e4. And the idea is simply that our king will march towards g4 and we will have a new target on g3. Rook returns to a6, king goes to f5. Rook is attacking f7. If he could take it with a check, he could take it, but now we are one move faster. King to g4, he is not able to take it, as we would then again be able to play something like rook b1 or rook g1 and the a pawn queening. So he can just wait here, but now we just give up our pawn, target the g3 pawn. If the g3 pawn falls, everything will be falling. And if he tries to defend it, he is so passive that this cannot hold the game. We just play for Zugzwang. He almost has no move. If the king moves, the pawn drops, and if the rook moves, we attack. Rook g2 again loses as we go into this pawn ending, forcing him to trade, and after that we will again win the opposition because we have more space and he cannot keep the opposition here. So he would need to go back, but we attack the pawn and finally we have the opposition getting in. If he instead would be getting his king out of the way, this looks quite suspicious, very passive. We can even start a mating attack, even though we just have rooks on the board. Rook h2 is a threat, and there is no tricks basically. If the rook goes away, we can just start collecting, and still he's in the corner with mating threats incoming, so white is dead lost. So this plan is actually how black could have won the game. Summing up, we have learned 3 motives. First motive is, as a defender, you need to have your king on those 2 squares, because the skewer should not be possible for the attacker. Otherwise, it's very easy for the attacker to win the game and to get the rook out with this tactic. If the king is very close to the rim, this just doesn't work. After that, we also got to know some principles for the attacking side, which is trading the rooks as a winning motive. We saw this here. We also saw why rook to e1 doesn't work, and yeah, often you can get this done because he has no way around it. Also, we needed another idea here, because if he defends against this first idea of trading rooks with a check on d6, making our king go away first, then we just spotted this weakness on g3 on the other side of the board, being able to give up our a2 pawn and in the meantime collect the whole king side. So that would have been it, but as you see, it is a very advanced stuff, and in this game from the current World Rapid and Blitz, black was very strong grandmaster. Yangyi 2698. He did not manage to find this plan, of course, due to time trouble, and you can really not blame him for this. But instead played f5. But this actually spoils it, because black is losing the flexibility to also go this route with the king, and thus there is no way really to enter and to get to the g3 weakness. So f5 already spoiled the win, and Sam Shankland, very strong player from the US, managed to hold the draw with the white pieces here. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, any ideas which you want to have discussed, let me know in the comments. And if you like the video, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate that, and I hope to see you on the next one. Goodbye.